Happy Monday, everyone. Hope you all are doing well. And I'm Jack Veltri for Gamecock Central. And of course, joined as always by my co host, good friend, and former South Carolina right handed pitcher, 2010 College World Series champion, Ethan Carter. And we said we were going to be back here on Thursday talking. Then some things happened over the weekend with Gamecock baseball, and we had to hold an emergency edition of GC Live on this beautiful Monday morning after everything that happened this weekend with the obvious. Paul Mainieri is no longer the head coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks, and Monty Lee takes over as the interim head coach for the rest of the season. And we're going to talk about all that, plus the series with Arkansas this past weekend, share our reactions to that. Of course, we'll look ahead a little bit to the week ahead with North Carolina tomorrow night, and then the series with Georgia this weekend, just everything in general. We're going to really do a full dive into so much that's happened with this program in the last 72 hours. And it's a lot, but we're going to unpack it step by step and over the next hour here. But appreciate you guys joining us as always. Ethan, before we even get rolling here, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, man. You know, it's spring starting to finally be sprung around here a little bit. Like I said, you'd asked before we signed off last week if we thought we'd have a new coach by the next time we talked, and I said no. So that was quite the surprise. So yeah, it's been a little bit of a whirlwind even for me out here in Virginia. So can't imagine what all you've had to go through the last 72 hours and everything in between.
I'm gonna break it down here in a second, but before we even get rolling, just gotta get our main sponsor going here real quick. Clint Hammond of CMG Home Loans. If you're in the market to buy a home, give a call to our guy Clint. Get in touch with him. He's been in the mortgage industry for over 20 years now. He's also a lifelong Gamecock fan, a longtime supporter of Gamecock Central. He's been the presenting show sponsor of GC Live for as long as I can remember. He's for years now been the show sponsor, and he's the man to go to. So get in touch with him at 803-422-6797. The NMLS number for him is 71597. And go to clinthammond.com for more information. Thank you, Clint. All right, let's just get it going here. So let's start with, we'll go in a little bit of an unorthodox way, but in the chronological timeline of events. Okay, so Friday night, one day after when did we last do GC Live? Thursday or Friday last week?
We did it Friday. We did it Friday before before the series got started.
That's right. So then Friday night, South Carolina gets demolished and loses 22-6 to Arkansas on a run rule. And yeah, that was a really rough game. 17-0 at one point. In no way, shape, or form did I think Paul Mainieri would be what would happen the next day. I was not expecting that. What I was expecting was, okay, he's going to coach the rest of this weekend, and then when South Carolina probably gets swept, that's when you make the change. Because that's just it seems to be the normal way. I don't really remember seeing a time where a coach just gets fired mid-series. Maybe you can, share if you have seen that before. I mean, I've never seen that before in my time.
Not that comes to mind, especially not in college athletics or college baseball. I'm trying to rack my brain, but yeah, I mean, and definitely not this early in the year. Maybe there's been something, with the last couple of weeks of the season, it's kind of gotten untenable, and some guys have left early to get started on some new coaching on a coaching search. But a move like this being made on March 21st, that is a new one for me.
It totally is. And there was obviously the post-game huddle, which has been referenced here now. And we get the question here, is that when Paul told the team that he was like, oh, no, that's not. So we're going to get to how it actually played out. So, and I in a way, yes, the huddle does make more sense. That's not what it was about, because number one, after the game, when we spoke to Paul, the first question I think was like, okay, what was the huddle about? And it was just about a bunch of word salad before he got to saying that he was proud of the guys for not giving up and that the bats are going to come out, hopefully better on Saturday. And ultimately he never lived to tell the tale in terms of being the coach at South Carolina, because I think it was a little bit after noon on Saturday morning turned afternoon when I got a call that, hey, like something is about to go down, and that's why I like texted you. I told you this. I was at the movie theater with Caroline, and we were in the middle of seeing Project Hail Mary. We were 30 minutes in. I get a call, and I take it, and then I text Caroline like, okay, we gotta, is it okay like if we get going here? And she's like, yeah. And shout out to her, like total cooperation, like totally good with leaving a movie 30 minutes in. We will go see Project Hail Mary eventually here. Yeah, I think it's going to be really good. But man, sped home and did not get pulled over or anything, thank God, and then made it home safely. And then luckily I had the inclination, I just thought like after that Charlotte game, I'm like, all right, it's better to be safe than sorry. So I'm going to get stuff ready to go for when this happens, because it's not a matter of if at this point. It's just a matter of when. And that when became little afternoon on Saturday when word got out that Paul is no longer the head coach of South Carolina. He's stepping down from the program. And then the statement came out from him and Jeremiah Donati that they agreed to part ways. Paul puts it as stepping down. Jeremiah says parting ways. He's not fired, so can't use that verbiage, but stepping down, parting ways, however you want to put it. And the way it sounds is that they met on Saturday morning and just agreed it was time to part ways. So, yes. So Paul Mainieri's tenure at South Carolina is over after just 80 games. Gamecocks went 40-40 over the last year and a half. You ready for this? 6-28 in SEC play.
Yeah.
They were run ruled 6 times. I was adding this all up this morning, so I think I have it pretty much memorized at this point. And then in 16 of the 34 games, nearly half of the games in SEC play that Paul Mainieri coached at South Carolina, the pitching gave up at least 10 runs. So, long story short, this hire proved to be let's call it for what it is, a real failure on a lot of fronts. It did not work out. And props to Donati and the administration for just ripping the Band-Aid off that had to be ripped off at some point, right? Like it had to happen. I understand, like, I even wrote this in my weekend reaction piece this morning. Like, it would not have shocked me one bit if they just like decided, you know what, we're going to let Paul just ride it out for the year. We're going to let him go off into the sunset. He's a veteran, well-respected Hall of Fame head coach. Let him just, especially knowing that towards the end of the year, South Carolina is going to LSU, and that will be Paul's homecoming in a lot of ways. I would have understood like letting him ride it out the season. That said, it's not necessarily the right decision because you still got 2 months left to go. In a way, that to me would kind of scream, okay, we're waving the white flag on this season.
Yeah,
making the move and promoting Monty Lee to the interim gives South Carolina a fighting chance moving forward here. We'll talk about that a little bit more in a little bit here in a little bit. But, yeah, man, I mean, 24 games left to go in conference play, about 31 or 32 games left to go in the season, half a season left to go, and just this move had to happen. And I'm a little surprised it happened on Saturday, but it had to happen.
Yeah, you could tell something was up on Friday when he didn't leave the dugout. He didn't make any of the pitching changes. You could tell something was just different. And of course the game got out of hand pretty quickly on Friday. But yeah, just something was off. And I made the comment to my wife. I was like, it's strange he's not the one making any pitching changes. And then we got some chants from the crowd that night. I think Friday kind of forced everybody's hand in that this is only going to get worse for all parties. And something needed to be done. Because nobody wants, I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday. Baseball is a lot different than some of these other sports in that you play 54 games and you are at the field every single day. There is no escaping, the totality of the season. You're there pretty much, I think NCAA, you're technically supposed to have one off day a week. So I doubt the guy will playing tomorrow. They're probably at the stadium, but anyways, you are there at the stadium every single day from January 3rd or wherever they get back to, the end of May. And that's if the season ends, end of May, so that's a long time to be at the field, and like there's just no running from it at that point. And the guys were clearly, everybody was just in bad spots and something. And again, I just think how badly Friday turned from just the game itself to the fans to, you were working, so I don't know how much perusing of social media you did Friday night. It was a pretty toxic place Friday night on there.
It's been a pretty toxic place, man. There were chants for there actually weren't that many chants for like fire Paul or anything. I heard maybe like one or two. The main chant I did hear, I don't know if you caught this watch on the game. Was the or we want free beer, like that. That was loud. That was loud. So I don't know if the fans got free beer, but it was a attempt.
And those are the kind of things that, they're funny. They're funny as all get out. But those are the kind of things that go viral. And those are the kind of things that really start to like, what in the world is going on with that baseball program? And yeah, I just think it had to be done. It's full circle for me. Coach Lee's who recruited me to South Carolina. Coach Lee is who I committed to at South Carolina. So real full circle moment for me as, my Gamecock journey. I love it for Coach Lee that he's getting an opportunity. He's one of the truly best people that you'll meet, especially inside this game, pretty much in any walk of life, but especially inside of, the baseball world. It doesn't get much better than Coach Lee. And I love it for him that he's getting this opportunity. He loves this university. We won't talk about the few years that he was with the other guys. But he truly does love this university. He cares about it deeply, and I am very glad he is getting a shot with this team. And he's the kind of energy these guys need to possibly salvage whatever is left of this season.
Agreed. Monty Lee is one of the best you'll meet in this game. Great, outstanding, guy, human being. We will talk plenty about him and what things look like moving forward under his leadership. But that's an interesting, point that I didn't even realize that he had recruited you out of high school. So I am interested in hearing about that because I knew Monty was at South Carolina in the mid 2000s, but I guess that does line up from a timeline standpoint. We're going to talk about more of that and everything with Monty in a little bit. We do have the question here, and this is one that I honestly don't even have a clear answer on yet. And I think a lot of the media really doesn't know yet for sure is how much. Well, we know how much the buyout is that South Carolina would owe Paul Mainieri, but again, it's a little bit different because it's like they didn't necessarily fire him; he stepped down or parted ways. So if they fired him without cause, they would owe him about $3.9 million. So it could be that plus the 2 months of whatever. So a little bit over $4 million when it's all said and done. But we don't know for sure if that is going to be what they owe him or if they came to an agreement, a settlement, whatever. That's probably being deciphered right now. So if we ever get a clear answer on that, I'm sure we will someday. But don't know for sure. So I don't want to really speak on that too much. We do have an interesting question, though, as I'm looking to find it here. Adam asks, what loss do you feel like was the nail in the coffin to Paul's tenure being bad? I will say, oh, God, there's so many. I hate to say it. There were so many bad losses under Paul Mainieri. The one that really sticks out for me, and I've talked about it before, so I won't really dive too deep into the nitty-gritty. that Texas A&M game last year, you could literally pick any of the three. But I'm going to go with game 3 where you had a 12-2 lead in the 5th inning and you lost 15-12 and gave up 2 grand slams in the 9th inning. And I think that was also the weekend that Paul forgot to put Brandon Stone on the travel roster. So yeah, that's something that I think a lot of people don't realize is that Paul had a lot of mistakes during his time in South Carolina. Obviously, there's that article from the Big Spur that I think from John Whittle that just really laid home the fact of what happened. And again, I heard a lot of the same things, but I just didn't have the I was not going to. I did not have enough to go ahead and put. John's so well connected too. Everything you got to have everything in order to make sure that story can go up. And I'd heard from people and people close to the program what had happened, but just did not have enough to nearly as much as that to put everything together. But that Texas A&M loss, when they lost 15-12 and they get 2 grand slams in the 9th inning, man. I mean, just talking to Paul after that game, I think I said it was like rock bottom for South Carolina, and I just admitted that Paul looks checked out to me. It looks like that guy that just made a mistake coming to South Carolina, and something needs to change eventually here. Now it did, but it feels like it took way longer than it really needed to. Honestly, going back to that story real quick, when you look at everything that came out about that story, and then you got people saying don't believe everything you read and all that nonsense. A lot of it ended up seemingly being true. But, I think it was probably a mistake bringing Paul back for another year. But again, I think it's a weird situation, man, because Donati was not the one to make that hire. That was a Ray Tanner hire. And Paul's such a well-respected coach and person in this industry. And I think if you're Donati, that along with the buyout, which was about $5.5 million on top of already having to pay coaches and whatnot, if you were to move on from them, probably just wasn't a smart financial move. But this something had to change. So I say the Texas A&M game. Long answer to a short question, but what do you think?
I think what put the nail in his coffin was the Florida weekend last weekend. And then to follow it up with losing to Charlotte, this 5-game losing streak, the 5, it ended up being 6 with him.
It ended up being 7 overall, but it was 6 by the time Paul got let go.
I think that Citadel to Charlotte stretch was really everybody knew then, because there was still you played Clemson tough, you won Friday, could have Saturday could have gone either way. Florida, you lose those 2 games, not getting any kind of offensive anything, and then get run ruled again on Sunday. And then just the absolute nonsense of that Charlotte game. I think there was no going back after that. And then, like I said, the game Friday just forced everybody's hand. I think to your point, I think they would have been happy. Probably not. They would have been content with letting him coach the rest of the season out as long as it didn't get too embarrassing, and then start it over next year, because obviously this team was, if everything is stayed the same, this team was not going to the postseason. They would have gotten a jump on the recruiting or on the head coaching search. Things would have been in place to mitigate any kind of further damage. But it just got to the point where everybody was miserable. I don't know anybody on the team to confirm that, but you just watch guys' body language on TV. Everybody was miserable. The head coach was miserable. The players were miserable. And again, when you realize you have 30 plus games left, good golly. That's just hard to wrap your head around, that you'd have to come to the field 30 more times and fake it. Because it only gets worse. I played in JUCO for a year with a coach that not many of us on my team respected. And by the end of the season, it had gotten so bad that we were praying for rainouts. And we Bull Durhamed it one day. Like we Bull Durhamed our field one day to make sure we had a rainout. That's how bad it had gotten at the end of that tenure. So it, when guys are checked out, these are young guys who feel that they are good baseball players, and when they are checked out, something's got to change. And I'm glad it did. I hate that we had to do the last year and a half, but the right move was made in getting this thing corrected, and hopefully we can take our best foot forward here moving forward.
Yeah, man, it was. I mean, the way I was trying to figure out a way to like talk about this on radio this morning, and the best analogy I made with because I was asked, how does this affect Paul's legacy? The way I kind of put it, and you'll get this as a movie buff, it just reminds me of an unnecessary sequel to a movie that was made. It's basically that. You have a perfect franchise, and then 10 years, 20 years later, whatever, you make a reboot or a silly little sequel to a movie that just did not need to be made, and it sucks. And then it's like, you know what? The other movies were so good that it's just you don't even care. It's just an afterthought that you just don't even. It's like the what's the analogy? The stepchild that you just don't care about. It's just. That's how I view Paul's time at South Carolina. Is I enjoyed getting to talk to him. He loves you. It does not look like it, obviously, on the field for sure. But I've talked to him a handful of times. Very nice guy. Loves the game of baseball. Loves being an American. There's a lot that probably doesn't get realized with him just because of just how bad this tenure was.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed covering him. There were some bad games in there, some bad press conferences, but he was always, I think he was always good about, handling things with the media and whatnot, and always giving us, relatively good access, I would say. But I think everyone's going to have their opinions on him. But I will say, there's no denying this tenure was a disaster, and it really should have never happened, right? Because I remember when the hiring process was going on, and they were South Carolina's trying to figure out who they're going to replace with Mark Kingston. I don't ever remember seeing Paul Mainieri's name in the hot boards, everything. It just felt like it came out of left field when it
way out of left field.
Yeah, when it eventually got reported that he's going to be the next head coach at South Carolina. I think everyone was kind of like, wow, okay. It was a little shocking, but even at the time, I was kind of like, you know what, he's only been out of the game for a few years, but he's won everywhere he's been. He's been to Omaha 6 times. This has to work, right? And it just didn't. It did not work. And so you're kind of suffering the consequences of that. But as we kind of transition a little bit now, this could have been a situation that after getting blown out, after your coach gets, axed essentially, this could have been a situation where everything falls apart and the weekend goes really rough. But I got to give South Carolina a lot of credit, and a lot of credit needs specifically to go to Monty Lee. I mean, this was a tough day on Saturday for that team, but they went out there and played a great next 2 games. If it were not for a 9th inning throwing error by KJ Scobie, South Carolina takes a series from a top 5 team just a day after losing 22-6. So where do you want to go with this? You want to go with you want to talk Monty first, or do you want to talk about the weekend with the Saturday and Sunday games?
I say let's talk about Monty, because I think his approach and his really just infectious energy played such a role in Saturday and Sunday. I mean, he's I think what you can always hang your hat on with Monty, and I think what had been so confusing the last year and a half is he is regarded as one of the best hitting coaches in college baseball. And his first 2 years at South Carolina, The numbers looked great. And then the last year and a half, it seemed to something had changed. We can all kind of guess what that was. But he's just somebody that has such an enthusiasm for the game and enthusiasm about connecting with young guys that I think that taking over a program mid-season, taking over any kind of team mid-season is got to be one of the most challenging things any coach can go through. That you don't have time to implement your things in a preseason. Everything is done on the fly. And I think Coach Lee is the ideal person if something were like this were to happen to take over a program, take over a ball club. Because just some of his comments post game, I know you were there for those post game interviews. Just some of those comments, man, just made you feel better.
100%. If there's anything,
and some of them,
if there's
go
any,
ahead.
Yeah, real quick. If there's anything that stands out to me if there's anything you should take away from the weekend series, there's a clip. I think, what's his name? I saw on Twitter there was a great little package put together. So Chris Jackson SC on Twitter, he's a Gamecock meteorologist. He put together a little 3-minute video of Friday's press conference with Paul versus Monty's press conference on Sunday. It kind of goes back and forth. And granted, it's after a loss versus a win, but just listen to the difference in the answers that Paul gives versus Monty gives. And honestly, you can listen to any Paul Mainieri press conference, even after a win. It's night and day. It's not throwing players under the bus and just having so much doom and gloom and negativity. Monty literally said, one of his main principles is there's no negativity. There cannot be hanging your head, showing bad body language. You got to be positive. You got to be excited to come to the ballpark every day. And let's just call it for what it is. There was none of that under Paul Mainieri. No. It is an old school approach that, and I'm sure Coach Tanner was probably like this to some extent. I've heard the stories from you guys about, back in the day about how tough he was and whatnot. But I feel like it was probably a different sense of being tough to where was baseball was still fun for you guys, right? And I think winning probably had a lot to do with that. But I'm sure playing for Coach Tanner was an enjoyable, yet not challenging, but you learn a lot of life lessons from him along the way. I just
sure.
And I've heard from parents, man, and different people just about the experience of their kids going and playing for Paul these last 2 years. It has not been, for the faint of heart. It is just not great. And then you see even 2 years ago when, Monty didn't get the job, 2 years ago. And we got the comment right here saying he should have always been the coach over Paul. Probably agree with that now. But the players were campaigning like crazy for him. Recruits, current players, former players.
Yeah.
All the personnel wanted him to be the coach. And it didn't happen. And Paul became the coach. But, look, Monty is the right guy to lead this program over these next 30-plus games. And we saw exactly why based on the results in these last 2 games.
Yeah, no, for sure. He's – like I said, he's just somebody you want to play for. I'm sure some of the – not to speculate too much. I do not have firsthand knowledge. But I am sure something that played in the back of Coach Tanner's mind when it came to hiring Monty or whoever ended up being Coach Mainieri was kind of what happened with Coach Holbrook, the coach in waiting situation. I think he wanted to go with a different route there. Obviously, it didn't work out. But yeah, Coach Lee's just somebody you want to be around, somebody you want to play for. I committed to when I was 16 years old. I was, now he ended up, taking the Charleston, taking the CFC job, the next year. So I never got to play for him. But he's somebody that's always stayed in touch. Anytime I've showed up to games, me and him will sit there and catch up. He is just, somebody that guys feel that connection with and are willing to do the things necessary to put egos to the side and want to win baseball games together. And yeah, I mean, like again, some of, it was encouraging things he was saying. And some of the things he said, you just wondered what was going on. He specifically said he's going to have a hand in every single aspect of the baseball program moving forward. And woo buddy, like, was that not happening before?
What was it we were talking about after the Clemson series about the whole question in back and forth with Paul? I asked him about when we were talking about Riley Goodman and what adjustments were made, and Paul made it sound like he had no idea what was going on. So, night and day difference.
Yeah. So I'm thrilled for him. Like again, I'm thrilled for him. I'm thrilled for the kids or the guys more than anything. They're grown up. They're men. I'm thrilled for those guys on that baseball team now that they're gonna have a coach that is excited about showing up to the ballpark as they are every day. Yes. And I think that is just going to be, again, I don't know if this team has the depth now after some injuries or, some of the other things to, after getting off to such a slow start, I don't know if they have enough to get over that hump to get to postseason play. But I can guarantee you as a fan base, the next 30 games are going to be more enjoyable to watch. They're not going to win every game. I mean, that's, I think this team has shown they're a little too inconsistent at times, whether it be defense, offense, whatever. But the effort and everything else is going to be there to the point where you're going to show up to the ball field as a fan and you're going to want to be there and root those guys on. Like I said, just night and day difference. I think there's going to be some fun had these next 2 months that was not there.
And I think tell me if you disagree or agree. I feel like there's no expectations. I feel like the pressure is off right now. The guys are able to play more freely because look, they got off to such a bad start. They're 13-12 right now, 1-5 in conference play. It's not impossible for them to get this show back on the road and really turn the season around. You got 30 games, 31 games to do so. You have 24 games left in SEC play. You can't lose. I mean, midweek games at this point are kind of like just irrelevant. Like, just don't lose any of them. North Carolina, okay, maybe don't lose any of the other midweek games, and then just go out there and see what happens in SEC play. It's gonna be tough, but if you can get to somewhere between 13, 15 wins in conference play, maybe you have a chance. And I think just getting in contention, I think, is a good start. I feel like if they get to the postseason, I feel like a conversation needs to be had in terms of keeping Monty for next year. Again, you're going to get the players campaigning for him hard, just like it was 2 years ago if things go well. So it's early to say what it's going to be like, but no doubt they've played better. And let's kind of talk about that. Let's talk about these last two games. Saturday, they lose the close one, but it was just a much more competitive game. And again, if not for a late inning error, they win that game. Sunday's the real treat, though, because they just came out with confidence, swagger, poise, and having fun. And having fun's the big one, Ethan, because they hit 4 home runs, and every time a guy circled the bases, whether it was Jake Randolph, Tyler Bach, Talmadge LeCroy, there was a big home run celebration waiting for them at the dugout when they would leap into the arms of the rest of the guys. That is something I have not seen since 2024 under Mark Kingston. No disrespect to Paul Mainieri. It's not a knock on him. I know that's not his style. But, man, South Carolina needs that type of energy.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, because, to piggyback off of our previous, what we were saying with Monty, you lose a game where the last out, you're a good throw away from the game ending, and then you go on and lose that game. If Coach Mainieri was still the coach, that team would have gotten blown out Sunday. Yes. They would have been run ruled. it would have been 7 innings and Arkansas's flying back to Fayetteville. Like that would have been the most predictable sweep in the history of this program. And those dudes went out there and they said, nope, you know what? Yeah, we should have won that game. And you know what? We're going to leave no doubt on Sunday that we should have won. And I think that's just a testament. I mean, Ant Phillips, hey man, ever since that kind of rocky Clemson game, that man has been pitching his butt off. And Brandon Stone, I mean, not what I saw as I did not. I guess after you saw that he didn't pitch Friday or Saturday, that would have been or didn't pitch much. That would have been the ticket. But to go out there and just, I mean, been pitching in just relief since opening weekend, and to go out there and just give a quality start and when we scored, he'd put up a 0. We scored, he'd put up a 0. That's so big. And that was able to give the offense, just get back in the dugout, keep swinging the bats. It was just a pleasure to watch. It was so much fun to watch this weekend.
It was. And the thing with Brandon that's really interesting is that Monty even admitted it after the game yesterday. Like, he wasn't sure whether he was going to start him or bring him out of the bullpen. He knew he was going to pitch. He just didn't know for sure. And then give a lot of credit to Brandon. Brandon went to Billy Anderson to see if he could find, Monty. And so I'll read off the quote here from yesterday. So Brandon said, quote, I found Billy in the weight room and I was like, hey, I want to talk to Monty. Do you know where he is? And they got him in there and he was like, coach, I haven't thrown yet. I know I haven't started in a while, but I want the ball. I want to give us a chance to win and go as long as I possibly can. And that was all Brandon, or Monty needed to hear for him to just start him on Sunday. And he gave a great outing, 5 1/3 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, 2 walks, really good outing. The thing I'm impressed with, though, yesterday from the game, again, the offense was great, dozen hits, 9 runs. Bravo, pitching with the start was really good. Monty did a nice job of piecing that bullpen together down the stretch. Yep. I had a poster on the message boards ask if I could find out if it was Monty's decisions with the bullpen or if it was like Terry and Chris Gordon. I don't know for sure, but that to me felt like Monty Lee, like playing the matchups, kind of just picking and choosing who he wants to pitch. Like, he brought in Logan Prisco in the 6th inning when Stone exited with 2 on, 1 out. He trusts him to get the next 2 guys out with a left-hander up at the plate, by the way. So it was definitely playing the matchups. And then even later on, like, he brought in Zach Russell to get 1 out. He brought in Alex Philpott. And then Philpott started the 9th. And he didn't even he gave 1 hit, I think, and then I think that was it for him in the 9th. He brings in Cooper Parks for 1 batter who gives up a hit. And then he trusts Parker Marlott, who has been with this program for a few years now, but has really struggled this year. And I feel like he really got the short end of the stick this season with Paul not – this is where there's a huge difference between Paul Mainieri and Monty Lee. This situation right here, I don't think you would have ever seen Paul with a 5-run lead in the 9th inning. I don't think you're seeing Paul Mainieri bring in Parker Marlott to get the final 3 outs with 2 runners on and nobody out, mind you. But that's where Monty's faith and trust pays off because he remembers the type of pitcher that Parker can be. He even referenced it yesterday, that outing against Kentucky in the SEC tournament 2 years ago where he basically willed South Carolina to a victory to stay alive in Hoover 2 years ago. So he trusts him to get the final 3 outs, and he retires the next 3 batters in order and gets 2 strikeouts. And that's a confidence booster, man, for a guy that has been awful this season. But we know he can be good. And I feel like he really just got the short end of the stick working with Terry Rooney and Paul Mainieri this season. And just those guys just seemingly haven't trusted him. You get Monty in there, complete change. And it's not just Parker Marlott. It's giving Eric Parker a chance at third base, even though he went 0 for 4, played really good defense. And that's a guy that
really good defense.
That's a guy that needs a confidence boost after dropping some pop-ups a few weeks ago and, getting basically sent to the quote unquote doghouse because, he wasn't playing well and he really hasn't seen the field since. And then you have KJ Scobie also, who made the error on Saturday and the thing that stood out with me with Monty, again, this is all just with Paul throwing guys under the bus. The opposite is you get Monty saying, yeah, we were trying to hype him up, encourage him, get his confidence going because he's our guy. And they trust him to play shortstop. And he played a lot better at shortstop and even drew a few walks because that's not very common with a guy like KJ to take bases because he swings at a lot of pitches. So the bullpen handling with Marlott coming in, I love it. I love seeing that. And I love seeing these guys have fun out there, man, because it feels like the last 2 years and you've watched plenty, man. It just feels like it's a funeral or something with these guys out there. The no fun nonsense cannot happen under the previous year and a half. But now that Monty's in there and you see the guys having fun, they're playing better baseball. And as you know, Ethan, baseball is supposed to be fun.
Yeah, because I mean, like, you think back to the Mark Kingston era, and I had the opportunity to meet Coach Kingston a couple of times, and I think he's a nice man. Yes. But he doesn't scream fun. You know what I mean? And even he knew, and that's what I mean. Yeah, exactly. He knew enough to be a little more hands off and let the guys go out there and have fun. And I think that just kind of speaks to, I think Coach Mainieri just was either trying to make his imprint on the team, or just he seemed to be a little too hands on in some spots and then neglecting some other spots. It just did not work. In any way. I mean, just looking at some of the guys, I mean, Tyler Bach have a freaking weekend, man.
He was good this weekend.
Jake
Randolph hit 3 homers this weekend.
Yep.
Another guy an opportunity to play yesterday, batting him like 5th in left field. I mean, dude, these moves do not happen under Paul Mainieri. I will confidently say that. Like, it's just, you're right. I think they got swept this weekend if Paul's still the head coach, but credit to, again, go back to the administration for just deciding, enough's enough. We're moving on here and trying to salvage what you can of this season, which kind of leads us into the final little bit here. But before we get into that, real quick, I talk to you guys about our newest baseball show sponsor, Andy Ludicky. So we are thrilled to have our friend Andy Ludicky sponsoring our baseball coverage this spring. He's a big baseball fan, and from his line of work, he has seen firsthand the fantastic traits that baseball players bring to the franchise world. If you're sick of your job, ready to leave the corporate rat race, want to diversify, build wealth, or leave a legacy, have a job and want a side hustle, Andy can help you out. He is a franchise consultant as well as a franchise owner and helps people find franchises that fit their skill sets, passions, and financial requirements. His services are 100% free, and he's here to help if you have any questions about business ownership. So head on over to myperfectfranchise.net to learn more, or you could text or call Andy at 404-973-9901. Thank you, Andy. All right, so let's look a little bit ahead here, Ethan. So this week you got North Carolina tomorrow. Let me check the rankings because
number 13 on the schedule right here. I don't know how
that's accurate because they were 14 yesterday. I wasn't sure if they moved up or not. They are now number 13, like you said. And then this weekend, you're going to Athens to play Georgia. It's really tough from here, man. UNC's the last real challenge for a midweek game. Definitely the biggest challenge you'll get in a midweek game this season for sure. Then the SEC play is tough, but just what are your expectations the rest of the way? I mean, record aside, what do you hope happens here the rest of the way?
I just hope these guys, again, I'm not quite sold just yet that this team is good enough to go on a big run. But I do think they're good enough to be competitive in the best conference in college baseball. Again, their season does not get easier. Again, they're on the road all week this week. I know Charlotte's not a terrible commute, but they're in Charlotte, then they go to Athens. And Georgia's currently the number 7 team in the country. And they hit the baseball. So it's not going to get any easier. But I think that there's something to be said about new life being breathed into a team, and maybe it kind of peters out towards the end of the year. But I would say probably over these next 3 to 4, these next 2 to 3, maybe 3 to 4 weeks, I'd be willing to think that this team probably has a winning record. When it's all, during that time frame. Obviously, they're only one game above 500 now. They'll have a winning record if they do that. But I think that's definitely in the cards for this group. They're getting some guys back healthy. I thought Bill Pott looked pretty good on Sunday. He's only going to get more built up. They're starting to find some things in the lineup. And again, I am one to think that I think the offense is going to look a lot different. I do not think that Coach Lee had the type of control that I think he envisioned when Coach Mainieri first came to Columbia. So I think the offense is only going to get better. And I think you're going to see some positive regression there. And yeah, I think over these next 3 to 4 series, we got North Carolina, Georgia, Texas, and then Missouri. So yeah. So over these next 3 weeks, I definitely think you're looking at a team that can, if they use this momentum, I think this team can be over 500 over the next 3 weeks. Now again, it's a lot to ask to carry this kind of adrenaline and that over the course of 2 months. So I definitely could see it kind of petering out towards the end of the year. But belief's a heck of a drug, man. These guys start believing and they start stringing some wins together. I've seen crazier things happen.
I was going to ask. So that's a good point you bring up. Like, yes, there's a lot of just adrenaline and just, I don't know what the right word is here, but there's just a lot of juice right now based on what happened over the weekend. That's eventually going to wear off, I think, at some point. And eventually it's going to get back to baseball. My question to you is, how do you keep that going for so long? Now, there was an interesting question brought up yesterday. In line with the celebrations and everything, just having more fun. Monty was asked, like, I think jokingly, kind of like tongue in cheek, would you guys be open to bringing back a prop or something? You guys obviously in 10 had the spirits, or was it the fish was in 12. The spirit
fish was in 12.
The spirit stick was in 10.
Yeah.
Not to get into a history lesson here, but remind everyone how. Do you remember how that all kind of came about? And
I do.
Just what? I mean, do they need something like that, you think, to kind of make sure this thing doesn't die? Because at this point, what happened with Mainieri should be the rallying cry moving forward of you know what? We want to play good baseball for Monty to make sure that should be their mentality, man. We'll get to Monty and what his possibilities of being the head coach are a little bit here, today, and then we'll talk about it definitely down the road. But what do you think they run me through the spirit stick, and then just do they need something like that, or is it just literally just go play baseball for Monty, man?
So brief rundown. I always forget who the heck we were playing. I think it was Bucknell. But it was game 1 of the regional, and we went into a lightning delay, and we were losing, I believe. This was the year Avatar came out. So we turned off all the lights, and we did the Navi thing around. We made a spirit stick, pretty much a bat to ball. We took a bat. I think it was a fungo. I can't quite remember exactly what it was. And and the guys, I think it was Pat Sullivan, Robert Berry, and one other person, maybe Michael Roth. And they taped bat to ball, and that became the spirit stick. And so I'm not always into that kind of stuff. That's never been my bag. But Guys respond to different things. I think what's going to be what I think is always the hard part to, there was a lot of adrenaline this weekend and it was just games, boom, coaches let go or new coach let go. Coach steps down, agrees to part ways, whatever. Boom, we got a game in like 3 hours. And then, all right, we finished that game. Boom, we got another game tomorrow. I think thankfully, boom, they got a game on Tuesday. It's only one day off. I think where you start to lose that juice is the monotony of the baseball season. It's like, all right, now Tuesday games, probably have an off day on Wednesday, traveling on Thursday. You get to Georgia on Thursday. You have a practice Thursday night down in Georgia, and then boom, 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 and then again practice, game, practice. It's a monotonous season. Baseball is monotonous. People call it boring. I think it's incredible. But it is a lot of repetition. It is a lot of doing the same stuff over and over and over. And that gets repetitive and it can get boring if you're not in the right frame of mind. So maybe to your point, these guys find a prop, find a thing to rally around. And that's, that gives them excitement, today. All right, I hit this home run. I get this thing in the dugout. We all celebrate together around it. Or, I get this big strike. So maybe that is something that this team can do to kind of keep that going. So I definitely don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, or I definitely don't think it's silly if these guys decide to do that. I think anything they can find to keep it going is going to be important.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if they necessarily need it. I think, honestly, just more than anything, we'll kind of get into some of the questions here. I know you guys have a lot of questions, and we're going to get to them kind of.
Been love seeing the chat, guys. Chat's been great today.
It's been a good discussion. But yeah, I think the thing more than anything, I don't even know if they need a prop necessarily. I think it literally is. You just see. I mean, you saw the post game video in the locker room yesterday, right? Like, of just the way the guys embrace Monty. They had the lineup card. They had the ball for him. Like, I think it's kind of like not this us against the world mentality, but it's kind of like, okay, we're in a really bad spot right now. Let's dig ourselves out of this hole, show that we can actually be a good baseball team. And at the same time, I think this is where they can really dig deep and kind of use this as motivation. Let's be honest. The players want Monty to be the next coach. That's how this is going to end up. Is the players want Monty, just like the last time. The players are going to want him to be the coach. And I think in order for that to happen, they need to play good baseball. They have to. They got to probably get to the postseason, I think, to at least start the discussion. Anything further from there, I think really just adds a nice feather in the cap. Like if this team gets to Omaha somehow, not saying that's going to happen, but if they somehow got to Omaha, Monty is going to be the coach here. No doubt about it.
I'll tell you right now, if they get to Omaha, I will find a way to get out there.
I'll do it.
If they get to Omaha, I will work a couple jobs. I'll start driving some DoorDash. I will find a way to get out there if they make Omaha.
Now, I don't know what the odds of that are. It's probably not good.
But to your point, like, Coach pretty much took over this year. They went 1-1. I mean, he took over essentially with a 1-0 record, for like one game above 500 is when he took over. So you're going to see, pretty easy. You're going to be pretty easy to tell how the team looked after he took over, at least from a wins and losses standpoint.
Yes, 100%. And let's get into the questions here. So, Is this season salvageable? We're going to get a lot of similar questions. We'll get to Monty for sure. Is this season salvageable? I say it is because you have – let's do the math right now. So they're 13-12 right now. It's 25 games into the year. You have 31 games left.
Yep.
And also, we cannot forget, you win the SEC tournament, you're automatically in. You're in the postseason. So I think if anything, man, I don't even know if it's just about like, yes, you can still, you're 1-5 right now in conference play. The schedule's going to get really tough. There's a few series here and there. Like I think Kentucky is winnable. I think Bama's very winnable. I think Missouri should be winnable, even though it's on the road. You just got to find a way to get to about like 11 to 12, 13 SEC wins, and then go out into and don't lose any more midweek games. Obviously, we'll see what happens with North Carolina, but you want to get somewhere around that 30. I don't know. Do you think what is it? 31, 32 wins probably. Maybe I don't know exactly what they need.
Yeah, it's good. It's hard to know. I think if we're looking at looking at this in broad strokes, you're gonna have to take 2 series. I think against Georgia, Texas, LSU, Mississippi State. You're gonna have to take 2 of those 4, and then you're gonna have to do. You're obviously gonna have to win Missouri, and you're gonna need to win Kentucky because that's a home series.
And Bama. Bama's also
and Bama. But I think you're gonna have to beat 2 of the 4 big opponents left on your schedule in Georgia, Texas, LSU, and Mississippi State, and then you're gonna have to absolutely win for sure Kentucky and Missouri. Bama, I feel as long as you don't get swept, they just swept. They just took Florida to the woodshed this weekend.
Florida, man. I think
Florida's not good. Florida's not good.
I think O'Sullivan's in trouble, man. I think time is running out on him this year. I think things are going real rough there. But that's another topic for another day.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you're gonna have to win some big series and do it. I don't know about convincing because I don't know how much the committee does stuff like that, in some of these other sports. But I definitely think you've got to beat those 2 of those 4 big opponents, and then take care of your business otherwise. And then I think there's a chance.
Yes, 100%. I think it's not impossible. I don't know if I could even put a percentage on it of what are the odds. But dude, 2 years ago, South Carolina won 37 games and went 13 and 17 in the conference, and then they went on a nice run to get to the semifinals of the SEC tournament. Had a few nice wins. They beat Bama, they beat Arkansas, they beat Kentucky, they lost to LSU twice. So they played 5 games out of Hoover 2 years ago. If they do something like that, along with having about 12, 13 wins in SEC play, you should be in the conversation. I'm not saying it's going to happen. But
because they were a 2 seed that year. They were a 2 seed that year in the NC State bracket regional. And I think NC State was a national seed. So
yeah, they were. So it's not impossible. I don't think it is. I think I think we're going to see a much better offense. We're going to see one that's much more akin to what we've seen the last, the 2 years before. The first 2 years Monty was back here versus last year. We're going to probably see the one that was a lot better. 2 years ago. The plate approach that we didn't even really get to mention, that plate approach just looked so much different, man.
Yes.
None of this be aggressive, swing at the first pitch. If it's even a bad pitch, don't take walks. We earn walks. None of that nonsense that just did not work under Paul. You work the count. You take pitches. You swing at, if there's the key for them yesterday, they were saying is swinging a fastball in the zone. And they did. And they had a lot of hits and a lot of runs. So I'll dive more into that, in a separate story later on this week, I think, just with this offense and what you can expect. But yeah, it was just nice to see a little bit of refreshing take. So we did say there was a question about Monty. Do we think Monty might stay as head coach? Again, I just think it comes down to what does South Carolina do this season? Are they in the I think if they're in the postseason, given how bad this season began and the really, the crap kind of situation that Monty was put in to begin with. South Carolina was 12-11 when Paul was let go. Yeah, I think if they get to the postseason, I don't think that guarantees anything because I think South Carolina has a really important hire to make here, and I think they can go out there and get some great coaches. But it would be tough to deny Monty if he does something really remarkable with this team.
Of course, I'm in the Monty Lee camp. But, like I said, it's definitely going to depend on what the rest of the season looks like. And, this is going to be the first John Donati hire, or Jeremiah Donati. I keep calling him John. I'm sorry, Mr. Donati. This is going to be the first real Jeremiah Donati hire.
Yeah, it's a big one.
And is he going to want to do this again? Again, I think it's a completely different situation. I think Monty probably should have gotten the job, 2 years ago. But there's interesting names. I've seen some. I've seen Landon Powell in the comments. A couple guys I've coached with, a couple guys I played with are head coaches in similar levels of baseball. Adrian Moraz at Nova Southeast. Nolan Belcher's doing a real good job with North Georgia. Those are guys that have head coaching experience. But then you have real big hitters. You have, the guy over there at Coastal Carolina.
That's the big guy.
I think that's probably, if you're not going Monty, that's probably where you're spending a lot of your time and effort. Donati had TCU rolling when he was the AD there. Now I know Schlossnagel was at Texas. He's not going anywhere, but the guy who replaced him,
Kurt Starloos. Yeah, that's another guy.
So I think they're going to cast a very wide net if it's not Coach Lee, and I think they are going to, like I said, this would be the first big hire for an AD who has been looked at with some skepticism from the fan base, mainly because there haven't been changes. So I think that he's going to want to make a home run hire no matter what he does. And I think they're going to explore all avenues for that.
I'm going to let you take point on this question. And I know it's probably a difficult question for you. You played for Coach Tanner.
Mm-hmm.
Look, there's no denying it, man. His tenure as AD is definitely it's a mixed bag, I would say. And, specifically from the baseball hiring standpoint, he is the one. And I think, look, Coach Holbrook had to be the guy, right?
Yes.
Had to be the coach. So it can't really, no one can fault him for that. Kingston, I don't think Kingston was actually a bad coach. I think Kingston was okay. But he got you 2 supers, but that was it. The Mainieri hire is the one that's like, this was probably the worst hire Coach Tanner made. But he's a Hall of Fame coach. He's won 2 national championships. So how do you view his legacy with just, do you even like do you have to look at them separately as a coach and an AD, because they're so drastically different?
Yeah, I think 2 things can be true at once. I think he's, one of the best coaches in the history of this university, no matter the sport. There's maybe 1 or 2 people you can put into that conversation with him. And I also think that some decisions that were made harmed the well-being of multiple sports programs, and that's hard to, that's hard to square. But he's always Coach Tanner to me, and I think when I think the first byline will not be former athletic director Ray Tanner. It's going to be 2-time College World Series national championship coach. I don't know if he won or how many Coach of the Years he won. But that's going to be the first line in any story written about Coach Tanner. The 80s stuff may get mentioned at the bottom, a lot like I think Paul Mainieri's tenure here is going to be remembered. Or at least as far as Mainieri supporters. But for me, I can separate the 2. I'm not gonna belabor fans that can't. This has been a rough, 10-year stretch amongst across some sports and everything. So I'm not going to belabor fans that can't separate it. But if anybody's asking my opinion, it's pretty easy. And it's known me and Coach Tanner had our differences, when I was at school. I love him still. He's always been willing to take any phone call or text exchange or meet in person when I've been around school. So yeah, I mean it's tough, and I hate that this is how it's kind of ended. But yeah, for me, it's not going to be hard. He's Coach Tanner. That's that's where it's at.
Yeah.
So
especially when people always refer to him as Coach Tanner, right?
Yep.
Like, that's the way he's going to be remembered, is that he won national championships. He really took South Carolina. I mean, the last year, June Reigns was not a good one, and then just elevated the program immediately. I mean, went to a bunch of College World Series in the 2000s, and then 10, 11, obviously. So yeah, I mean, I think that's the way he's going to be remembered. Like the hires have not been great, but we'll see. It's that one. It's the Muschamp hire. I mean, his tenure as an AD, but I think it's led to South Carolina finally realizing, okay, they need like a guy that actually, not a guy that knows what he's doing as an AD, but like just has the better background to be an AD. You know what I mean? Like, I think we're kind of seeing the former coaches step into the AD chair, because it's different, man. It's different and it's hard, and I can imagine that was certainly the case for Ray here.
Yep. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's a completely different job, one that, no amount of coaching success can prepare you to be the athletic director over an entire athletic department that is as vast and as powerful as this one. Without, I think that's why the point was made to go get somebody that's got a proven track record of leading an athletic department at this scale. So, I think Mr. Donati's going to do a good job. And I hope that, Coach Tanner is remembered for, his coaching, because that's what he was. He was coach.
Yes.
The AD stuff was thrust upon him, and it's hard to say no in those situations. And, just I hope that's where it's at. And, we can all move past the AD phase of Coach Tanner's legacy and just focus on the coaching stuff.
For sure. All right. Think we have definitely hit on everything at this point. I don't think we're missing anything. I know we do have a question here. Will we be live on Thursday? I don't believe you're going to be able to, right? Because you think you got.
Depends on the timing. Me and Jack are going to talk about it a little bit.
We'll figure it out. There will be a show on Thursday, I think, but we just don't know what the situation is, because this one needed to be had to talk about everything else that was going on. This could not wait until Thursday.
Yeah, because we didn't even get into the weekend series. So yeah, we'll
figure something out. Either exactly. That, maybe Friday. We'll figure something out. Any final thoughts from everything we've talked about? I don't think we're going to be talking about Paul Mainieri moving forward here. So speak now or forever hold your peace on anything else you just think, like what went wrong. I mean, just literally anything you want to say here. The floor is yours, because I think we've covered everything.
Yeah, I hope Coach Mainieri enjoys his second retirement. I'm with you. I don't. There's no reason to belabor that point anymore. This is a new era of Gamecock baseball, which I am very excited to watch and talk about, each week. I don't think that Coach Mainieri should have come out of retirement the first time. This was not, it was clear that he wasn't. The game had kind of passed him by. Like I said, I wish him all the best in his retirement and getting back down to, wherever he calls home base and enjoy that retirement. And I'm excited for Coach Lee. Again, I'm so very excited for Coach Lee and these guys. And I think that it's going to be, I think we're going to have more fun watching the guys. I think we're going to enjoy talking about these series each week. And again, I don't know if it's going to translate to more wins and losses, especially since he's getting the meat of the schedule now. But I think just the level of play and what you're going to see out of this team is going to be, leaps and bounds improved compared to the last, would you say 80 games?
80 games on the dot.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a lot better than the last 80 games.
Yeah, I'm excited just to see. I'm excited we get to talk about baseball again. It's actually fun to talk about baseball.
Yeah.
It's not this burden anymore. Again, the results in the field may not be good the rest of the year. They could have a season similar to last year. But I will say it is going to be more interesting to watch this team now and see them having some sort of fun. And who knows, man? Look, they went out there yesterday and beat a really good team yesterday. They were literally
they should have won series.
One bad throw away from winning that weekend series against a top 5 team. We'd probably be talking a lot differently about things right now if they had just won that game on Saturday and then won yesterday. But that's the way the cookie crumbles, and we'll see, man. I mean, it's just good to see that things have changed finally, and we'll have a lot to talk about these next few months, man. I mean, it's not even just we're going to be talking about this into the summer now, because now you got the coaching search that'll happen, whatever they do, the portal. Like, we're going to have a lot to talk about, and I'm excited.
Yeah, it's good for us.
Man, I'm just excited to it's like starting all over again from everything that happened 2 years ago. But it's like now you're here talking with me, and we're going to have a lot of fun doing it, man. So I really appreciate everyone tuning in. We got, 70-plus minutes of talking about this. So hopefully you guys got a lot out of it, enjoyed it, all that stuff. We will probably be back at some point later this week. But, again, we just needed to get this show on the road this week right out of the gate just to talk about this. That way everyone can move forward, and we really don't have to talk too in-depth about the stepping down and just everything that came along with that, and move on. We'll see if it leads to better results. So, Ethan, appreciate you as always, my friend, joining me, and appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll be back again soon, sometime later this week, as South Carolina gets set to head to Charlotte tomorrow to take on North Carolina. I will be there, so Adam points that out. I will have fun out there covering that game tomorrow. Yankees are on this week. Opening night is on Wednesday, so we're gonna have a lot of fun with that. But yeah, man, it'll be a lot of fun. So for GamecockCentral.com, I'm Jack Veltri and Ethan Carter. Appreciate you guys joining us, and we'll see you guys again soon.